In this really quick video guide, we're going to see how we can create easily mapping using Node Wrangler in Blender and how we can also mix together textures. So to create materials, we need texture, first of all. So I'm going to start from the beginning here. I'm just going to create a new scene. And usually when you work with texture, you want to use shading mode. So here is where you can see the material and the central node, which is this one here, and then the texture that you're going to bring in. Now, if I want to create a new material, or if I don't have one, I can go here on this little red icon of the materials on the right side, and then I can delete the material. I can create a new material, and you can see the standard material is plain white. So usually when you work with materials and textures, you need mapping, you need also texture coordinates. And if you don't use Node Wrangler, what you need to do is go here and add here every time the texture coordinate node, and you can add the mapping node. And then you need to have a texture. Now, I usually get my texture from Polyhaven. So this is where I got the two textures that I'm going to use. So Polyhaven is a website where you can get free textures, models, and HRIs. And there are other video guys talking about Polyhaven. So if you go in the texture section, you will find the shaders here, the materials. So I've chosen this one here. And if you want, you can download the entire package, or you can click on these three lines and select the format and the type of texture that you want to download. In this case, I want to go for the diffuse, but you can also do normal and roughness effects with the same technique. So if you click here, this is the image. So right click and just save the image. I have saved mine in the download folder, but you can save it and store it anywhere you want. So if I go back here, I also want to use this other texture. So I click here again, click on the three lines button, and then click on diffuse, right click, and save image. I'm getting two different textures because I want to mix them together. So I want to show you also this other tip that you can use with Node Wrangler. Now, by the way, you have a documentation here explaining everything there's to know about Node Wrangler. So how you can create quick nodes that are really handy, and also how you can mix textures and other stuff. So you can find all the information right here if you are interested. Now let's go back into Blender. So let's start a new file so that we can see everything from the beginning. So this is the cube right here, and I'm gonna go into the shading mode, and also want to activate the screencast keys for you guys. Okay, so you can see it. So we are back at the same exact moment that we were before. Now, to use the Node Wrangler, you need to go to Edit, Preferences, and this is an add-on. So it's a plugin in Blender, which is already preset and pre-installed. But if it's not available, you can look for that on the web. But you can see in the latest version, if you go in the add-ons and search for the node word, you will find different types of add-ons. What you need to activate is this one here, so Node Wrangler. Once it's activated, then you can close these up. And to quickly test if there is the Node Wrangler activated, you can go here on an empty space and press Ctrl T. So you can see nothing is happening. Now let's select the central node, and if I do again Ctrl T, it's going to create these three nodes. So I don't need to create them manually, just as I show you, but they're already ready for me. So I can now just click on Open and select the texture that I have downloaded. So let's start with this one here, open image, and there you go. Now, why it's really important to have mapping information or node and texture coordinate? Because then you can arrange and manage the material and the textures quickly and easily. So for example, if I want to rotate the texture, I want to rotate it, I can type right here, I can click and drag, and I can rotate. I can also change the offset, so I can change the position of the texture, which is tileable, so it will never show like the cuts or the seams. So be careful to use seamless textures. And down here you have the scale. So if I do like 0.5, this is going to enlarge the image. So it's kind of going the other way. So think about scale as tiling. So if you decrease the tiling, you're going to have a larger image. If you increase the tiling, so let's do 2, you're going to have a smaller images and more repetition. So this is kind of working with repetition rather than the scale. So if I say 4, it's going to be even smaller. So let's make this 2 for now. And now let's add the other textures. And the quickest way I know to add a texture is just go into the folder where you downloaded it and just click and drag it. So there you go. This is the texture. And I can now substitute the first textures with this other one. So we can see now the bricks, but you can see they are mapped or wrong. So this is, again, why you need mapping and coordinates every time that you're working with textures, and especially if you work with the tileable texture. So you can see I don't have the 2 nodes now, so I need to create them. So I either go here and create them one by one manually, or I can select this node and then Control T again. So you can see that for this to happen, you need to have selected the texture or the central shader node. So now I have, again, my mapping. Now nothing changes so far, but let's say that you can see the bricks are in vertical and I want to change them in horizontal. Then I need to go into rotation here and rotate them to 90 degrees. So now they're looking fine. And now let's also increase the repetition so that it looks a little bit smaller. So now this is half the size and twice the repetition. And now let's say that I want to maintain both. So I want to use both the bricks and the rocks, but I want to mix them together. Now, another quick tip and another quick way to do it with Node Wrangler is to hold Control and Shift and then right click and drag from the first texture to the other. And this is going to create a mixed node. Now, if I expand with the little arrow, the mix node, you can see that it did everything automatically. So I didn't need to add the mix node myself. Otherwise, I would go here and search for mix. Now, what we can do with the mix, we can do a bunch of things. For example, using these blending modes like in Photoshop to change the aspect working with both the textures. So you can see I'm creating like new materials starting from the original materials, and you have different types of blending modes, and you can also change the factor. And if you go to the original mix, you can see the factor here is just like going from 1 to 0. So 0 means that I can see the first texture, 1 means that I can see the second texture. So in the middle way, I can see a little bit of one and a little bit of the other. So probably this is not the best thing I can do here. I can try again with different other types until I find the one that I want to use. So it could be like a mixture of the two. Now I can also use a different type of factor. I can use another texture to work with a factor. So if I do, or I can use a procedural map. So if I do add, and let's go to add and texture. Let's add, for example, a noise texture. So this will not be a simple 0 to 1 value, but it's going to be more complex. So if I place this one here, now with this, I can mix them using a noise texture. So if I change the scale, you can see a little bit what the texture is doing right there. And again, you can work a little bit on these other values. So this is a procedural map, meaning that you can essentially change it right here in Blender without exiting Blender. But for example, if you need to change this one here or this one here, you need another software like Photoshop or GIMP or Pixar or Canva, wherever, and then you need to reload the image. So this is just, a quick overview of the Node Wrangler. But if you're interested in more lessons about Blender, you will find it in the channel. So just look for them or go in the Blender playlist. And so this will be all for this quick video guide. I hope you enjoyed. If you did, subscribe to the channel. If you want to support us, join the channel as a supporter. Thanks for watching. See you in the next.